My name is Dr. Sebastian Matzner. I'm a senior lecturer in comparative literature and also the director of Queer at King's. We're an interdisciplinary and interdepartmental collective of scholars who work together on topics of gender, sexuality, and identity. What do? We organize conferences, as most academics do, symposia, workshops, also reading groups, and we try to engage with the wider student body and with the LGBTQ+ communities around us in the Greater London area.
Hello, my name is Daniele Lul. I am co-founder of ParaPride and community engagement director. I am a proud disabled gay man of Italian and African descent. ParaPride is an all-inclusive organization that focuses on the intersection of being disabled and LGBTQ. We are a fairly new registered charity. We officially launched in May 2019. ParaPride came along, well, for me personally, after becoming disabled a few years ago. I was struggling to reconnect with my community. It became evident there was great need to address the lack of access and inclusion within the LGBTQ community. A need for a more inclusive LGBTQ spaces that could cater for different types of disabilities, physical, sensory, non-visible diversities, and a need to promote positivity around different bodies and celebrating that. I was lucky to come across a group of individuals that shared the same vision, including my colleague Joseph Williams, ParaPride Managing Director. And we were very aware that when people think of disabilities, they often think of vulnerability, a form of weakness, and in my experience, even sometimes pity. But when you watch the Paralympic Games, this perception changes completely. You can visibly see power, strength, and resilience. For this reason, we chose to call ourselves ParaPride, to reach a higher sense of empowerment for accepting, embracing, promoting, and celebrating diversities. ParaPride's mission is to ensure the experience of all members of the LGBTQ community is fun, welcoming, and equal.
Now, as much as queer studies and queer teaching is invested in staying in touch with queer activism at grassroots level, things quickly get difficult. There is a great impulse towards abstraction and theorization within queer work, which is a good thing. It gives us this critical thinking space to really dismantle and unpack what's happening in society out there, what makes people tick, why we think the way we think, and there's a great potential for liberation in there. But we felt that we wanted to do more to really stay in touch with the LGBTQ communities out there, especially in our neighborhood in the Greater London area. And that's pretty much how the idea for an activist in residence scheme came about. As the name suggests, we've nicked the idea of widespread artist in residence schemes and placed an activist where the artist would normally sit, which is to say we wanted to give an affiliation to our university, to King's, to a local activist or activist group. The idea was that we wanted to share our resources that we have as a research center at King's with that activist group, and that we would in turn learn from them, that they could connect with us and with our research expertise, that they could connect to our students, and that we could learn about the challenges they face and the actions that they undertake to improve the situation and the lives of LGBTQ people in the Greater London area.
Now more than ever, the challenges faced by the LGBTQ community with giving visibility to underrepresented communities and minority groups. Not being able to have that sense of togetherness you get when you're physically together. This will have more of an impact on underrepresented and more marginalized LGBTQ communities. Although we have technology to be together online, and although this tool allows us to reach to wider audiences, unsurprisingly, many people are not finding it easy or appealing to engage with online events.
I very much agree with Daniel that visibility was, is, and remains one of the key challenges for LGBTQ people at large, especially in times of COVID-19. I think one thing that's easily forgotten is that for any individual queer person, the story of coming out is a challenge every time again. And no matter what kind of social progress we make, for every single person who realizes that they are different from the family into which they're born, the community within which they grow up, it is a real challenge, and being able to connect with other queer people is key for that, and finding ways that include technology in the age of COVID-19, but also other forms of socialization is really critical so that LGBTQ lives can develop and flourish. Other than that, I think it's difficult to ignore the big rollback that we see happening globally. There is a pushback against the rights that were won by earlier generations. It can sometimes feel that with legislation such as the Equalities Act in the UK and the right for queer people to get married, there would be a wider sense of general acceptance that being queer is no longer an issue. If anything, it's fashionable in the metropolitan areas like London. But there is queer bashing every day on the streets across the country, including in our capital city. And these are challenges that continue. And we see this even more exacerbated in other places around the world. If one thinks at the moment of what's happening in Poland, where entire towns declare themselves to be LGBT free with the approval of some official parties, then we see really clearly that there is a pushback against liberation for sexual minorities and for the equality of men and women and non-binary persons. So the work needs to continue.
There are challenges that the disabled people face in queer spaces that go beyond the infrastructural barriers. There is also a cultural inaccessibility that causes the lack of visibility for disabled people within the LGBTQ community. The disabled community is particularly vulnerable to the effects of homophobia, transphobia, and is frequently victim of harassment, abuse, and in worst cases, even violence. This is an incredibly isolating experience. All members of our community need to be enabled to participate in order to help combat these effects, as well as to combat the social inclusion that surrounds having a disability more generally. Everyone is entitled to engage with the communities they wish to, build relationships, have fun, and feel included.
Daniel mentioned visibility and accessibility as two very important challenges and aspects of current LGBTQ activism. And these were two aspects that we've already seen being points where we've started to learn from each other. And that continued when we had to do the switch to online formats halfway through their residency so far. We've learned from ParaPride about their practice to use British Sign Language interpreters for all of the events to make sure that deaf people can participate in the events as much as everyone else. And we've adopted this idea for our online series, Queer Artists at Home Talking About Their Work, interviewed by members of Queer at King's, which again featured a British Sign Language interpreter. And as a result, we had access to communities and people had access to us that we weren't even thinking about before.
Through the Activists in Residence collaboration, mainly, we were very happy to create awareness about disability within the LGBTQ community. After the very first ParaPride event in August 2019, and after being nominated Activists in Residence by Queer at King's, in February 2020, we hosted our largest live event by presenting the largest showcase of disabled and queer talent ever seen in the UK. We soon realized that ParaPride was changing the fabric of social opportunity for disabled and queer people nationally. Queer at King's was a contributor to this amazing event, not only by co-funding it, but also by helping us to promote it and being present on the night.
I am just so pleased, thrilled, and relieved that the fantastic February event at the Stratford Arts Centre, the ParaPride takeover there, could happen just before the UK shut down. It was an absolutely spectacular event.
I've followed ParaPride for the last few years and been at all the RVT events, and I've just loved how every time we do this, there's another pool of talent that come forward, and seeing so much tonight is just amazing and touching, inspiring.
It means the beginnings of getting that diversity out there. And I think it's so important that we recognize the diversity of our community. As I said, for too long, it's been white, able-bodied male.
It means that we can showcase our abilities and what we are able to do.
Being someone that's passionate about equality as well as diversity, an event like this just really steers us forward to make sure we're doing the right thing.
Queer also have an invisible disability, so just actually seeing people out there performing on stage and being open about it, I know it's just a really good feeling.
It's an opportunity for people who are very often not represented in mainstream Pride to be seen and to be part of the community.
We had somewhat prepared ourselves for that fantastic occasion with a creative competition held at King's, open to all of our students. It was a creative competition on the theme Dislabeled in Society, and we invited students to submit any kind of creative piece, some prose, a poem, a collage of images, photography, a video, whatever they wanted. And our activists in residence were the jury who picked the runner-up and the winning entry. And we ran this from November, December, so Disability Month, through to February, LGBT History Month, nicely bringing together those two aspects of our collaboration. Our initial idea was to have a follow-up event to the Stratford Arts Centre takeover to reflect a bit more on what this kind of work means to the people who are involved in it. We had planned a roundtable, which because of the COVID-19 crisis couldn't take place, but we switched that around, and I think it worked even better that way. But Daniel can say a few more words about this.
After the LGBT History Month event at Stratford Circus Arts Centre, we presented a series of digital events where we looked into more depth into the intersectionalities of being LGBTQ and disabled.
So how does our work at Queer at King's and how does our collaboration with ParaPride through our activist in residence scheme fit into the larger picture of queer activism, and what other initiatives are taking place locally and globally at the moment? The first thing to acknowledge is that there is only so much we can do as an institutional player when it comes to queer activism. Queer activism is disruptive. It is supposed to be. And an institution has only so much tolerance and space for that. With Queer at King's, we try to be an institutionalized irritant to the institution in which we live. And we are grateful that we are being given quite a lot of leeway in being that and doing that. At the same time, there is a large amount of queer activism that has to be free from any kind of institutional affiliation. And it is important for us to stay in touch with people who do this kind of work as well. That includes, for instance, members of staff who are active in other fields completely separate from their professional work and lives. On the other side, it's important for us that Queer at King's is a place where different strands of activism meet. Since the foundation of the center, queer activism and queer research have both become much more specialized and much more diverse. It's important that people have a community where they belong, and it makes sense that we now speak of LGBTQ+ communities rather than just community, because there are so many discrete, special groups where people feel at home and where they can flourish and be themselves. But it's important that we are in solidarity with each other and that we don't lose sight of each other. And Queer at King's tries to be a place of coming together, of talking about the struggles that we face and developing politics of solidarity together. So the point of intersectionality that Daniel mentioned earlier is absolutely key for us. One of our other partners is the Queer Asia Collective, which was co-founded by our visiting research associate, Dr. Daniele Lul. The Queer Asia Collective tries to look critically at both elements in that phrasing, and they're both somewhat in inverted commas. They try to work out what queer means if we don't understand it from a Western perspective. And they try to think critically about what Asia means when, again, we try to divest it from its Western perspective. So through Daniele Lul, we've collaborated with this international collective of researchers.
During these uncertain times, that we are still planning to do more work with Queer at King's. They have very kindly offered us to extend our residency until 2021. So we really look forward to doing more work with them. Students can connect with ParaPride through different channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
If you're interested in finding out more about Queer at King's, have a look at our website, which you can find in the links below. Do follow us on Twitter. Our handle is @QueerKCL, and we're also on Facebook under the same handle. Make sure when you visit our website that you sign up to our mailing list. That way you'll get up-to-date information about all of the events that we've got coming up. Likewise, be aware that there are other places you can connect with queer people around college. There is an active student society that you may want to get in touch with. Also, our staff network, Proudly Kings, sometimes hosts events that are generally open to the wider public. So sign up to mailing lists, connect yourself, and come along to the events that are waiting for you. Many of them will be online in the first semester.